And welcome back to post-game content. As always, I am Max, and I am sitting here with the fabulous, the wonderful, I'll just say it, sexy Michael Bonner. Michael, how you doing?
You know, I started to believe you, and then there were too many adjectives, and I stopped. I've been married for too long to believe that shit, Max.
You can tell when somebody's buttering you up. Yeah, I get that.
You don't have to butter me up that hard to get what you want from me. I'm an easy man. Like I said, I've been married for a while, so. Oh, I'm good though. I appreciate you asking.
That's not a terrible T-shirt.
Check it out on our web store right now.
Michael, we're coming hot off the Game Awards for this year. How are you feeling about it? We talked a little bit during it, but any surprises? Anything that you were, taken off guard by? Any announcements that you're excited about?
Man, I would need a list to really to get a full handle on it. But I think the one that caught me off guard the most, just wasn't expecting it, was Hades 2. Man, it looks great.
Yeah,
I'm very excited about that. And Hades 1 was such a delightful surprise anyway. So
that's a no-brainer, frankly.
Yeah,
is making a sequel to that game.
Yeah, I was watching it, and the only thing that came out of my mouth while the trailer was running, other than wow, this looks great, was it looks a little samey. But also the game was fantastic, so I'm not going to complain that much.
Yeah.
So
I have kind of the same concerns about Silksong whenever that ends up showing up. It looks pretty similar to the same core gameplay as Hollow Knight, which is fine because, if one scoop of ice cream is good, then 2 scoops of ice cream is also probably good.
True.
You know what I mean?
True. That does not apply to pancakes, though. You have one pancake, and you're like, wow, this is great. And the second pancake, you're like, this kind of sucks. And the third pancake, you're like, I'm fucking done with this. I'm done.
That is an incredible point.
But I think, they're on a timer with Silksong. What was that? That was in June or July?
It was, yeah.
They said, here are all the games coming out in the next year. And that was in the lineup. So, sometime in the next 6 months, if we don't see Silksong, Xbox is a bunch of liars. So.
There's got to be news at some point. There just has to be.
All we've gotten was that little teaser. That's about as most as we've seen of it. So
with no date attached.
Sad. But all in all,
Sad.
I was really happy to see all the new things that are coming out. I'm really excited for the new Armored Core. That looks fantastic.
Hell yes.
Miyazaki cannot get away from words like cinders and fire and that whole theme, because the text started to come up, and it's one of two things. Either one, he just can't get away from that, or two, he did it intentionally to make us all whoa, is this Dark Souls? Even though the gaming community as a whole has known for a while that Armored Core is coming next. So
right. Yeah, it's funny that his writing is just kind of like that now.
Yeah.
I'll be curious to see how. I don't think there's any chance that Dark Souls doesn't influence the core gameplay of Armored Core at this point. I'll be curious to see how that actually translates. It'll be sort of interesting.
Yeah, not to circle too much on the Souls conversation, but just because
have we talked about Dark Souls before?
I want to make this point, and I want to revisit it offline, and maybe even anyone on here that's listening can check it out in the Discord. I'm scared, and I'm just going to say this, and we can move on from it. My thoughts on Elden Ring my opinion of Elden Ring has gotten worse and worse and worse as time has gone on, arguably to the point where it is we talked about before. It's just trickling further down the ladder, and nearly at the bottom on it. I still like it more than Dark Souls 2, but I'm scared that because it was such a critically amazing reception, that everything is going to be like this now, and they won't go back to that pattern that they had with games like Sekiro and Dark Souls. So we don't have to dwell on that. That is a whole podcast in and of itself. But Armored Core, at least the trailer looked fantastic. So now I did see something interesting about it, though. They said that Miyazaki started as the only producer and that he is not the executive producer anymore. Like there's there's someone else that's actually working on the project too. Like he's still involved. I think
Sure.
what it probably is this guy's taken on the role of executive producer, and Miyazaki's like, I want to be creative design and be a part of everything, because that's what he did with Dark Souls 3 as well, and 1. He was involved in every aspect of it. So
that makes FromSoft's doing a lot right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like he was probably focused on like whatever's going on with Elden Ring and that team.
For sure.
You know, whenever that DLC comes out. So that makes sense.
Yeah, as long as the DLC has some type of tie-in to Bill Clinton, I think the Game Awards was a tremendous success.
I didn't know if we were going to talk about that.
You can't talk about the Game Awards without talking about the bloody finger invading and, you know, dropping the Bill Clinton bomb for no reason.
I'll say this: there are points. You know, there are legitimate arguments you can make for either God of War Ragnarok or Elden Ring winning Game of the Year. I think there's a major point for God of War Ragnarok winning it because the dude who played Kratos would have handled that shit.
Yeah. You know, barring another 15 to 20 minute speech. So
yeah.
I've seen a lot of,
but guess what?
A lot of people, like, that's such a divisive topic. The speech that went on for 20 minutes, people were talking about how it was disrespectful, that they were trying to shove him off stage whenever it was such a good speech. But I don't think people understand how these awards work and the time that goes into it, and, you know, the timelines they have to stick to. And people pay for marketing and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we're getting off topic again, but
for sure. And I know they say this every episode, but Michael, we're not here tonight to talk about Bill Clinton. Tonight,
speak for yourself.
You and I. Tonight, Michael, you and I are here to talk about a character called Batman.
Never heard of him.
I was gonna ask. Do you need me to give you a brief introduction on who this character is?
Yeah, give me a rundown. I'm not familiar.
All right.
Definitely,
this is gonna blow your fucking
definitely not familiar at all.
He says fingering his Batman necklace.
Could you use a different
somewhat
word?
Seductively?
No, never mind. That worked fine.
I said what I said. We are here to talk about Batman Arkham Asylum. Please stop doing that. Obviously, this game kicked off the like incredibly popular Arkham series and was, I think you could argue, probably the first like massively successful comic book game.
Yes. Other than maybe like Marvel's Ultimate Alliance or something like that, those were pretty critically acclaimed. Like up to, because I think at that point Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 2 had come out.
Well, yeah, because
those are
Ultimate Alliance, I think was a 360 launch title. I think.
Yeah.
So that was popular by default.
But still, I mean,
like,
we had. For those who don't know, I have a lot of like video game retail experience. I worked at GameStop for a while, as you know, unfortunately enough. But R.I.P. my soul. But that was always a popular hit. Like it was really critically acclaimed and people loved it. But you're right. I mean, whenever that game like hit the shelves for like pre-order, and the first trailers that came out for it, and announcement of like Kevin Conroy's involved, Mark Hamill's involved, and they're like, it's not like your standard, you know, because all these superhero games that came out were like you're just jumping around buildings and like. I'm thinking of like the old Spider-Man or like
I was going to say, not naming any games in particular.
Well, they were all the same, no matter which superhero game you were playing. Like you walk through this really distinct preset area, beat up a bunch of bad guys. There's a cutscene. You walk through the same area with a different skin, do the exact same thing. They were all that way. And this is like one of the first ones that like changed the narrative from like a superhero beat 'em up to a like action adventure title. With a great story.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it, is that it finally, I think this is the first game that really matched the core gameplay loop to the character.
Yeah.
You know, where it was a stroke of genius to realize like that the appeal of Batman really that people love a lot is not just that he's good at beating up bad guys. It's stealth. It's a lot of stealth gameplay. And making those two work together, like it's spawned 1,000 memes at this point that this game actually makes you feel like Batman. And I promised myself when I hit the record button that I was not going to use that phrase, but I mean, fucking A, it actually does.
Yeah, like we talk a lot on this show about like the connections that you're able to form with the characters, and this game is no different. And it's cool because it not just puts you in like the head or the mind set of Batman, but like even some of the other characters that the games get intimate with, and even on into Arkham City, especially with like the Joker and like some of the other characters that are just so pivotal to the story. You really get a sense for who those are. You don't feel the same connection you do with Batman, obviously, but like the game channels what the comics do about how like Batman and Joker are like very yin and yang. So like as you get to know Batman, like the Joker, you natively become to like get to know him, and capturing that in an artistic way, such as like a video game, or I should say an artistic medium like a video game, is like has to be a really difficult concept that they just nailed. Like this game was fantastic.
Yeah. And I think that's the first thing that I really want to talk about, just to jump into it here, when it comes to Arkham Asylum, is just that presentation and the production value that they brought to it. A lot, I think, of the value this game brings is in its art design. I think it's really difficult to take characters that are as well known as like Batman, the Joker, and design them in a way that feels fresh and iconic.
Yes.
And Arkham nails it. And something that I was thinking about while I was like putting my notes together for the show was that, like, just to put it in context, this game comes out in 2009, which means we're coming right off of The Dark Knight. It is a perfect time for a Batman release, and I guarantee you there's pressure to make things feel a little bit more realistic and gritty. And Rocksteady doesn't do that. Like, I would argue that the main inspiration for all these characters is from the comics themselves. Where everybody's just a tiny bit exaggerated, like things like the Joker's mouth, which is insane.
Yeah,
like it's it's gigantic, and he has pointy teeth, and it's never addressed. Or like Batman's insanely fucking ripped. Like everything's just a little bit turned up, and I think it gives this game such a voice, really, and like its own sort of take on a lot of the characters that I think was bold, and pays off in spades. I think it comes across really, really well.
Yeah, and all of them are just like so neatly woven into the story tapestry as well. There's no character that when it's introduced just feels like they were just giving it, fan service to have them in the game. Even the ones that are like there's a lot of them that are like passively in the game, where there's like their cell or something like that, where you get artwork and different types of little tidbits of information about him. But like Clayface, for instance, like was really cool because you see him, like, but he's not a factor in the game at all. He's just behind the wall pretending to be different other characters around Arkham. So every character feels fresh, every character feels fun, has their own unique twist. And you're right, it is very comic inspired. It was not meant to be that realistic take, and the artistic style they chose, and presenting that all the way down to like the pause screen, switching to just like the black and white version of whatever's on the page and like comic books was just stellar choice.
Yeah, it just feels very cohesive. Like they had such a strong vision for what they wanted these characters to be. It's funny that you mentioned Clayface, because that was going to be one of the first ones that I brought up for, like, I don't know, side characters.
Yeah.
There's I don't know, it really impressed me in the stupid little details, but if you use detective vision on Clayface, he doesn't have any bones.
Yeah. Yep.
I love that.
It is awesome.
I think you can tell, like, down to the very foundation of this game, this was put together by fans. There's a lot of smart references to the comics that you might miss if you're not, a huge Batman dork. And even like the concept for this, just to give a really quick story synopsis. Batman brings Joker into Arkham Asylum. Joker escapes. Batman proceeds to have a bad night. It is.
I love that. Love that.
It's kind of the perfect like Batman story, I think, right? Like it's small scale enough where it feels reasonable if this would take place over the course of an evening. It has a setting where you can incorporate all of these different Batman villains, and that's where Batman gets to really shine. And the stakes are, I don't know, I think they're about right. It is kind of like, I wouldn't say it's pushing the boundaries of Batman stories, but it fits well within his wheelhouse, I would say.
Yeah, and that's always the challenge when you're dealing with Batman, and that's why a lot of people have issues with Batman in the comics versus the representation of Batman in the movies. Has been whatever he's up against. People, the classic Batman versus Superman. The strength versus will versus intelligence, things like that. So keeping Joker as the central villain in the game, I think one was a great call because it's the Joker, but two, crafting a story outside of the boss battle, crafting a story, and we'll get to that later, but crafting a story that you're right, like matches ups the ante for the stakes for where they're at and the potential harm to outside of the particular setting that you're matched in all felt right. And the presentation of that is excellent. And just the story is, I know we're talking about, the story is just so damn smart in this. And I got a huge applause to the screenwriters and just the entire storyboard team for this game. Like, it is just fun. Cause I remember, like, obviously I know when I replayed this, I knew the story beats, but like hearing it all again and the little details and the tricks and all of that it made me like laugh and smile the whole time. I was like, this is fucking genius. This is just so fun to go back through.
It's just fun shit. I think you're absolutely right. Where like, I think the scale is small enough for a Batman game. I generally, I like Batman stories. They're a little bit more grounded, where he's doing much more like detective work, and even if he's not going up against, I don't like reading him in the Justice League and stuff because I don't think that shit makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is about right, I think, for how to handle the character.
Yeah.
And all of it is like, so, we've got incredible art design. We've got a solid narrative to hang everything else on. And then they go and be above and beyond and get the absolute best cast possible.
Yeah, it is amazing. Obviously, it's just like everyone came to this game for Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Everyone stayed for the supporting cast because everyone else was just as good. Like, even like the people you only ever talk to on the radio, or the Amadeus Arkham voice, or like all of those were just so fun to listen to. The Amadeus Arkham Chronicles was probably one of my favorite things about my revisit of the game. Just listening to like the tone of his voice and the stories that he was telling were just fucking awesome. Like, it was so cool to revisit that.
Absolutely. And like, the voice of Harley Quinn, like, they got a lot of like legacy Batman people to be in this game, and they did not phone it in.
No, it was top to bottom, just fun. And like, I discovered and learned a lot about the Batman universe the first time I played this game. I guess just a little bit of history about like my experience with Batman. My experience with it was like a lot of people's, where Batman animated series and like the little cartoons and things that were on
For
Justice
sure.
League, and then it was 2008, 2009, something like that, whenever they rebooted the New 52 comic book line. I just
Sure.
happened to be at the comic book shop the day all those launched. So I got all of them and read through Batman and Robin, Batman Greatest Detective, Batman, and then The Dark Knight, all those storylines. And then I went back and visited the older, like 400-ish up to like 600, but read through the Hush line, like all of those.
Ooh.
And just that's where I really fell in love with it. The rise of like digital comics was clutch for that because daddy was a broke college kid back then. So, but no, so like getting something like Arkham Asylum in tandem with that was like so awesome because little villains like the Tweedledee and Tweedledum reference and the, you know, out in the Arkham Gardens with the seesaw and like all the little references in the Riddler puzzles paid such a great homage to just everyone that helps craft the Batman universe and brought Arkham to life in a way that it wouldn't have been just due to the fact that those people were there. They were around. They breathed life into the environment, and you weren't going to get that if those things weren't in the game. It would have looked great. It would have felt great to be in. It would have been fun to traverse, but it wouldn't have felt like those villains had been there.
I think that's absolutely true. There's so much world building that goes into it. And, you know, if you're a fan of the character or have read the comics, you know, that pays dividends in this game.
Yeah.
You know, if during that entire thing that Michael was saying, you started nodding furiously when he started talking about Hush, this game is for you, effectively.
Yes. Oh my God, Hush. Best Batman comic book arc. Changed my mind. So
That's a good question. So,
it's my personal favorite. I'll just say that. I
think it's incredible. I think it's very, very good. It is. So my introduction to the character was very much more in the graphic novels, and reading through a lot of those. Hush is obviously incredible. That was written by the same guys who did The Long Halloween, which is
great. It was a great one.
I think probably the biggest reference for a lot of the character designs in this game. You know, where it's comic booky and sort of exaggerated, but like, I don't know, it still feels kind of grounded.
Yeah, I could see that.
My absolute favorite Batman graphic novel is actually Arkham Asylum.
Oh God, that's a really good one.
It is
ironically enough.
like
go ahead. I'll let you finish first.
No, the art design is incredible, but it feels like the biggest reference you get to that novel in this game is actually in those Amadeus
Yes.
logs.
I was
like that storyline is very much pulled.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Absolutely. And I love that because like you get the idea of like someone who's like crazed. It mimics it just mimics Batman so perfectly because there's always been like and I think Scarecrow and Joker both make a reference to this in the game, but like the whole "you deserve to be here as much as we do," Batman, like you're just as crazy as the rest of us, and it's 100% true. And Amadeus Arkham, as you're listening through those chronicles, mirrors that same sentiment. That while he's in here trying to help and save people, he just goes berserk and beats someone almost half to death, and you know, like makes the realization that I'm no better than these people, so I need to be better than them. So how do I do that? And it just mimics Batman so closely that you feel just yet another like a really strong connection to this game and this character and something you already know about Batman as a Batman fan. And I'm not sitting here to tell you that you won't enjoy this game if you're not you will find enjoyment in this game purely mechanically, if nothing else, if you're not a Batman fan. There's a lot to offer here, but if you are a fan of Batman and the lore and the stories and just character designs, all those things, you are going to really, really like this game if you haven't given it a shot, which if you haven't, it's been over 10 years. What are you doing? So
you can pick this game up for $5. It's insane that you haven't tried this game.
yeah, it's so good. So good.
Yeah.
There was one thing at the beginning of this game that upon like revisiting it and knowing that we were going to record an episode about it, that I thought about, it just kind of blew me away. Someone who knows Batman decently well. I'm not going to sit here and say I know like comic books inside and out. There's a lot that I don't know. But someone that knows Batman decently well, I'm very familiar with the character. I'm familiar with the concept of Arkham Asylum and the Joker. And, actually one of my favorite standalone graphic novels was The Joker. I don't know if anyone's ever read that one, but where Batman's only in it in the shadows or had just been there. And it's just like amazing being able to tell it from another person's perspective. But I got a lot of that feeling because that book is like whenever he gets out, and this is whenever he's coming back in. And so it was cool because all those characters being so familiar to me, when you're going back into Arkham to drop Joker off, it really captures the vibe and the feeling that you've been through this before. This is not a new situation, and which is exactly what Batman felt. He's been through the situation. It just changed a little bit, but he's been here before. He knows the situation, knows exactly what he's doing. And this whole thing is designed as you are walking through and going through this whole tutorial phase to make you feel as familiar with everything as you can, because you may not have played this game before, but you've been in this situation before. You know that something could go wrong. And I think that was such a pivotal design choice in the first 30 minutes of this game to make the player as comfortable as possible playing this character that honestly is intimidating to play in games because it's such a difficult vibe to capture.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, is that there's such a sense of rote routine in that first opening section, where you're right. It does feel like not only has Batman been here before, but the Joker's been here before. Like, this should feel like a day in the life. Mm-hmm. And it's such a good way to bring you into the world. And also, as you're going through the facility, give you a sense of, the setting that you're going to be in for the next few hours, the characters that you're going to meet, because you get cameos as people like walk by or are processed. You get like a look at Killer Croc and realize like, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to deal with him at some point.
Yeah.
Sure hope I don't have to hit him with 1,000 batarangs.
Yeah. But at the same time, though, like a lot of those, like they leave you really questioning like how you're going to tackle these situations, because like arguably like most of your layout and most of your loadout is available to you at the beginning. It just gets a little stronger as time goes on, pending a few explosives or different things like that. But just really, really strong connections formed very early, because the game, it goes no send on you and it goes wild really quickly. And so I think it literally like holds you for a few minutes and makes you feel comfortable and then just shoves you into the action, but you're okay with the push. And it feels really natural. It feels really good. And like the strong transition from thinking this is going to be like an action game whenever Joker takes off, and then like immediately pushes you into, okay, remember Batman's a detective. And I would say this game's like 60% detective, 40% action. And I love that. I love it so much.
That's interesting. I think the plot, yes, that's absolutely true. Because this is at its core,
that's true. Good point.
This is a mystery game. Figuring out what the Joker's plan is and sort of putting those pieces together is like, that's the main narrative drive. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like, as much as we'll talk about how fucking good the combat system is, it's only like a third of what I'd argue is three pillars of the game. It is the combat, it is stealth sections, and then it's exploration, kind of like light platforming.
Yeah.
I would say are like the three main sort of pillars of the gameplay.
Yeah. And it's just such a solid blend of those two, because there's moments where you're doing just all of them at one time, and it doesn't feel like you're transitioning between them. It just feels like you become so comfortable with the control scheme here. And I said this when we were discussing Metroid Dread, because God knows I'm getting familiar with everything I've said in that episode. But like continuing to form that connection in a very tight control scheme very much smooths out how you feel with Batman over the course of this game. A couple of the segments that, like, when you're just, the ability to just run freely is great. And then you hit something and your character will automatically vault over it. And then you have the ability to zip line up a wall and just seamlessly start running and then jump over something else and glide down. Like, there's no stopping and reorganizing or recentering yourself or anything like that. It's like you really get the vibe that, like, Batman is in his prime. He knows what he's doing. You're not new Batman like you are in Origins, which wasn't a huge fan of that game, but it was still great.
Yeah.
There is a sense of mastery and veteranism to Batman in this game, and how comfortable you get with the controls really enforces that sense that you have as Batman in this. So it's albeit to say the controls are fantastic.
Well, yeah. Well, I think that's absolutely true, and also that I think a lot of the animations for Batman are incredible, and that particularly comes out during combat. Combat is sort of, I would describe it as kind of it's almost a rhythm game, where you're mixing between attacks, counters, and dodges. But what makes the whole thing sing is how well Batman is animated. So there's kind of a thorny puzzle in figuring out priority targets and figuring out when to block and when to attack. But how reactive Batman is to attacks, and how seamlessly his combos seem to come together, gives you that sense of mastery that you were talking about. While you're just handling like a couple of buttons, Batman's doing the brunt of the work, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. But it's what's so cool, because like it feels, like you said, it feels like a dance, like the way that you fight in this game, because like you'll have 3 or 4 or 5 guys coming at you. And what's great about this is, like, a lot of games have this like counter ability to where it's just like anything that's coming at you, you can counter them. But in this game, it's like if you are getting attacked and you're mid flow, you can't just like stop attack and counter. Like if you're mid something and something's behind you, Batman can't just like, he won't just like glitch and then be back there and like block an attack. You're going to have to take a hit every now and then. And yeah, that's why you have an armored suit. Deal with it. So now I'm not saying there's a way you couldn't have avoided that, but I like how the game is okay with letting you take damage. It's okay with, letting you learn that, you need to find a better way to approach this, because you're going to take hits if you don't prioritize. And the game is really smart at setting you up for success in that way. But the combat is set up in a way that, like you said, it just flows so smoothly, and being able to time how long an enemy will stay down or which enemy is closer to you, so you can seamlessly jump, hit, move back and forth, kind of like you inevitably, when playing this game, will get in that rhythm where you're like circling around the room hitting people until you get like the one hit knockout punches combo setup if you've unlocked it. It's just a great sense of progression in combat and in story. Like as the story gets deeper and deeper, there become more and more enemies, more complex enemies, and you learn at a really solid pace to how to handle it, and it never feels too overwhelming. And when it does, you just got to figure it out. That's just part of being Batman.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. One of the I think one of the proofs of concept that shows that this combat system works really well is there's an upgrade you can get that gives you bonus damage if you attack people, like it says in the upgrade, like at the right time. Like you get like critical hit damage if you attack at the right time. You don't need to hear any more than that, because after a couple of fights, you start to figure out what that flow is.
Yeah.
Like you start to see the dance come together, like to continue your metaphor.
Yeah. And I remember like when this game came out, how critically acclaimed like this combat system was, because that was what everyone was talking about before it came out, was what's fighting with fighting as Batman going to be like? Because it needs to be, he needs to be like this ultimate, ninja warrior and, stealthy but yet like able to kill, like super deadly. And I remember those conversations with all the chunguses that were in and out of GameStop every day. And the game didn't disappoint. It made you feel very powerful. It made you feel very good, but also like if you get hit, you're a human being. You get dazed and you take a hit and you stagger, and then you got to reorient yourself and get back into the flow. Can't let it knock you over.
Yeah, I think one of the best litmus tests for whether or not a system in a game has been implemented correctly is that it makes you feel like a badass if done correctly, but you have to have the ability to fuck it up.
For sure.
And
yeah.
This absolutely has that. Both in the combat and in the stealth sections, which I think are like the two strongest parts of this game, I would argue.
Yeah, I agree. I do wish that the game's base difficulty was like they had scaled up everything, like pushed normal to easy and then or normal to hard and like that. But the game is very generous with your health. It's very generous with being able to counter. It kind of auto counters for you at a certain point. Gives you big flashing indicators when an enemy's about to hit you. But if you like,
for sure,
if you want to really feel like Batman, play this game on hard, because like you'll take a little more damage. Not like bullet spongy stuff. You're a bullet. If you get hit with bullets, you're pretty much like boned in any difficulty. Like you need to get out of the way.
If you're getting hit with bullets, you've already fucked up.
Yes,
frankly,
exactly.
Like damage shouldn't matter at that point. Like a lot of things have gone wrong at that point.
And that's just good general life advice. Like you should probably just not put yourself in that situation.
That's a pro gamer tip.
Max's pro gamer tip number 4. We have finally got another one, ladies and gentlemen. If
you're getting hit with bullets, you've made mistakes.
Oh man. But but yeah, I think my favorite feature about the harder difficulties is it removes the counter tell, like the big flashing lights, and you really just have to pay attention to where you're at in the combat, who's around you at all times, and it puts you even more inside the cowl, so to speak, to be able to, oh my goodness, someone's coming up behind me. Instead of hitting that button when you see the lights, you hit it when you feel or see the enemy coming at you. Like it really changes up the way. I played the playthrough we did for this podcast on the hardest difficulty, and I've played this game like 7 times in the past, so like I'm not trying to flex. I just am really familiar with the game. But I recommend everyone give it a shot, because once you play through it on the normal difficulty, like it feels more like an accessibility option than it does like how the game was meant to be played. But like, I don't say that because the game is more fun when it's hard. It's going to be fun regardless, but you really feel more like Batman when you have to be more in control with how vulnerable you really are.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you're right. There are a lot of like, I don't know, cushioned sort of mechanics. Like the fact that you get health back after finishing every fight.
Yeah.
To the point where he may as well have just had like respawning health. Like
yeah, you hit one enemy and it's like, oh, you get 50 XP. XP is health in this game. Like the experience you get refills your health. So, which I don't know. Like I have to imagine that was probably one of the more difficult decisions to make, was how do you refill your health in this game, because like it's not like time passes, you know, all this happens in the course of like arguably like 8 to 10 hours in real time. So it's not like, you know, if he got shot, he could be like, pick out the bullet and be like, just spray some chem fluid on it and just regrow your fucking arm back onto your hand. But you know, we all
to be fair, what you just described as the healing like system for Metal Gear Solid 3, which I think we can both agree is fantastic,
and Resident Evil. So,
oh, that's true.
But I mean, I'd just say I've never seen Batman and Ethan Winters in the same room. I don't know about you, but
no, but Batman has like 4 brain cells, so he can't be Ethan Winters.
That's 4 more than Ethan Winters has. Holy
exactly.
shit. Fair enough. Fair point. But
also, Batman fights a lot of mutant plants in this game, and I think for Ethan Winters that would be conflicting.
That's true. Damn, savage.
Whatever, he's Moss. Who cares?
You're a literal scum, Ethan Winters. No, but I like the I like how vulnerable you are in this game. Like, I like that if, especially on hard mode, if someone nails Batman in the side of the head with a baseball bat, it's gonna hurt a lot. And
right.
Or a metal pipe, or he just gets lit up by gunfire. It kills him. Like, it's just even on the normal difficulty, you can only tank bullets for just a few seconds before you die. So I like it. It puts you more in line, and even in like the stealth sections are arguably like just really, really well rounded as far as what Batman's capabilities are. Because it entirely changes how the game plays when you move into that category. So.
Yeah, I like how well defined they are. Like, you're never surprised when you're going into a stealth section. But it makes it clear that this is kind of like, now we're going into a puzzle. You know, which gives you a sense of like almost comfort and familiarity, which I think Batman would probably have because this is his fucking day-to-day shit. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
But all of them are unique. All of them are set in these kind of like, self-contained rooms with a bunch of goons around. And there's generally some stakes of like, you know, you have to take everybody out without being seen. Or everybody has guns, which means that if you're seen, it's going to be a problem for you.
Yeah.
Like, they're all just sort of interesting. And like, some of them are kind of head scratchy. What I like about it is there isn't one like correct way to solve them. Mm-hmm. You know, you're given sort of a sandbox to play around in. So if, you know, you're a fucking scrub, yeah, you can use all the statues and basically never touch the ground and just do inverted takedowns for everybody. You can do that. That's totally valid. Or you can be a fucking Chad and start using explosive gel to set up traps on people.
I like how there's like, that's the 2 ends of the spectrum, like inverted takedowns or explosive gel.
Inverted takedowns are for cowards. I'm going to say it. Explosive gel is for the real boys.
Real boys are Chads, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it here. No, I found myself like inverted takedown. You would use like, honestly, you can't use it after a certain point because the game's like progression doesn't stop at the combat or the intelligence of the enemies. Like, they get to the point where they will literally inhibit certain abilities that Batman has to stop stealth. Like, the game is, the enemy here is face-to-face combat, and that's what the enemy wants you to have to focus on. So he starts picking away your ability to play stealthily because he knows that's Batman's greatest strength. And I love that because it's like the game was designed knowing Batman. Like, this isn't just a superhero game. It was designed with the villains with an intelligent mind getting inside the head of Batman and going, okay, like, if we can see him, he's not a problem. So how do we make it so where we can see him? So they start
Right.
taking away your inverted takedown ability. They start making enemies have sirens on them when they go down, so it gives away your location, and just little things like that. There's a super smart design, and really
There's
forces
so
you
many
to change
things.
up how you play.
Yeah. There's so many things about the design of those stealth sections that I think really show that the developers understand the power fantasy of Batman.
Hmm.
One of the things that I think they do incredibly well is like, when you're looking down on everybody, from a perch or whatever, it'll show you not only like where they are, but also will show like their heart rate, like
Yeah.
whether or not they're scared. And like that
Nervous.
is so clearly like that is what you want to be. You know what I mean? Like all of those stealth sections are great because it's a boss fight, but you're the boss.
It's so true. That is like a really good point.
Like Batman owns every environment that he steps into, and you really get to feel that when you're able to see everything, and it's so clear that the people that you're up against do not have all the information that you do. Like
Yeah.
that imbalance is what really creates the sense of mastery and power.
Yeah. That's what creates the superhero vibe, like that this
Yeah.
game is going for. Cause like the game does a great job of making Batman feel human, but like little things like that, like elevate him to that next level, like right below superhuman. So it's just, it's really cool. Now, it's actually one of the few complaints I have about this game. Since we're talking about it, I'll bring it up here. There's not we're dealing with like criminally insane people. These people are in Arkham because they are literally insane. And they want to kill and murder, do anything they can do. What doesn't matter what happens. Every single one of them is terrified. I get it. Batman's a scary dude, but like I wish that there had been a few sections where it's like when it gets down to like the last one or two people in these big areas, they were just like they're just like fine. Like they don't care. Like if I go down, whatever, like because they literally they're psychopaths. So I just
would be sort of interesting.
Well, it was more of like a setting complaint to me because you're literally in one of the, I think in Batman lore, Arkham Asylum is like one of the most clinically insane places in lore, right?
It is. So there is a lore explanation, which is that beforehand, the Joker had a whole bunch of his thugs shipped in from Blackwater, which is like,
that's right.
So that's mostly who you're fighting. Now, there are moments where you fight people who are absolutely insane.
That is true. They come right at you.
Like,
they don't give a full send. They do not care.
So, I don't know. If you're feeling uncomfortable, you can tally up how many mentally ill people Batman suplexes during this game. And that number's in the high double digits.
Doesn't kill anyone, though. He will literally grab their faces, bang them against like concrete walls, punch them continuously into the floor, but god dang it, they are alive. All right.
Right, yeah. They're in the hospital for the rest of their lives, but they are alive. He is technically correct, the best kind of correct.
What a hero. That's my dad.
Based solely on that comment, I do wish you're right. I wish they had hit that like that point about villains pointing out that Batman should be in there with them. I wish they had hit that a little bit harder in this game.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that was a missed opportunity because Batman's a fucking sociopath.
Fact. Yeah, 100%. I do love the Batman purists that are just like so dead set on the fact that like Batman's perfect and he can do no wrong. And it's like, you've obviously never read any comic book because he gets the shit kicked out of him literally all the time by almost literally every single villain that he fights. So
go ahead and read Batman Year One and tell me that Batman's perfect.
Oh man, I love Batman as much as the next guy, but you got to be willing to concede on the little things. But you're right.
You can't say that while you're wearing a Batman necklace. You have to know that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Know thine enemy. Now, I do love like talking about like the the insane people. I like the variety in this game, like the enemy variety, because you do have those like Blackgate thugs. You have like random inmates that are just free roaming around Arkham in like their own little groups. Then you have these actually insane people that just like sprint at you. Like you get the feeling that they would just like if they saw anyone else, they would do the same thing. And I love how easy it is just to take those guys out. It's just like you just pick them up and just crush them. You know, because Batman's an insensitive prick. What do you want from the guy?
They do make for some of the, like, I don't think this game necessarily has jump scares, but they do use those guys like almost like jump scares.
It is true. If you're not paying attention, which if you play this game and you don't walk around the entire time in detective mode, you're insane.
Yeah, it's true. It's free. It costs nothing.
But like those guys, like will just start screaming and then run at you, and then he'll be like, "Oh God!" I'll punch him in the face and suplex him, and immediately get up and be like, "Barbara, I found your father. Are you okay?"
Like it has already left his brain. He's just collapsed an entire spinal cord.
That dude literally didn't even know what he was doing, and Batman's like, "God, what a freak!"
Even a thought.
Oh my God. You had to have known walking into this episode about Batman that we can't. You have to be able to call out the little things like that with Batman, because
Batman's not. He's a man walking around in his underwear, absolutely crippling the mentally like afflicted population. That's basically his job.
Oh my gosh, that's such a funny point. But to get off the topic of beating up mentally ill patients in a hospital,
as we often do,
the enemy variety is fun in this game. Because of that reason, because like you have like these different types of guards that are like some that will have like these weird knives, or some you have to stun, and it's not just a variety of different enemy types because they all look a little different. They are oddly all really buff and in shape, but what else do you have to do in prison for 20 years? So
I guess that's true. One of the things that I think is really impressive about this art style is that not only is it distinctive, expressive, and like kind of evokes the comics that inspired it, but it's really legible, which I think is tough, especially when you're right. You've got different enemy types that all do different things, and make it really important for you when you're playing to prioritize targets. In a crowd of 20, and be able to pick out like, okay, that guy needs to go down first.
Yeah.
And this game makes that really easy, which I think is really impressive. Like, it's not like these enemy types have crazily different silhouettes. Everybody is basically like an average, if insanely jacked human. But they all stand sort of differently. There's enough visual cues that enable you to snap into like, I know what that guy's deal is all about.
It's a good point.
Which makes combat like kind of it's a joy because it's not frustrating at any point. If you get hit, it's wildly obvious who hit you and why it happened. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and most often than not, it's because you overcommitted to a combo.
Yes, that I was just gonna say that is always the reason that I get hit. So,
yeah.
Or I got greedy trying to like stealth kill someone, and then someone walks around the corner, and it's like, okay, Batman, do you really need like 35 seconds to knock this guy out? Come on.
It's so true. Or it's like, you do the takedown combo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or like when you've got like, a 5 built up and you're able to instantly take somebody down, and it takes, well, no, that's not even the one I'm thinking of. It's when somebody's on the ground and you have the option to like
leap over them and then jump on. Yeah.
Yeah. But it takes a billion years for some fucking reason.
Yeah. He has to glide down gracefully and then land on them, and then, wind up his fist.
He has to hold them down for a second, stare lovingly into their eyes, and then punch them out.
Exactly. He's not gonna suplex everyone. Come on.
Right. No, he's not crazy.
Oh man. But yeah, it's the variety in enemies, like even beyond just like how they look, it's fun. Like because it almost feels like, because you're right. I mean, there's like arguably like 6 or 7 different types of enemies in the game, but it never feels that way. It always feels like every enemy is like meant to be there, or is like freely roaming around Arkham like on their own volition. And like, even though yes, everything's scheduled because it's a video game, and you never get that vibe, like, or they're ordered to be there, or they're just casually standing around like whining about, like, what the Joker's doing, or like, did you see this? Like, I saw Poison Ivy like got out of her cell, like walking around the botanical gardens. Like, they just talk freely about other things that are happening there. And like, enemy design in a game where there's with combat driven game is very important, because it sets the tone for your expectations of the enemies moving forward, because you know there's a certain limitation to that type of thing. So like, enemy narrative is like one step further, and the ability to use that type of, although limited in the scope of it, the ability to use that as like a driving force into like driving continuity into this evolving world as you move forward is awesome. Like, you don't get that in video games very often.
No, I think you're right. And it creates such a sense of place. Arkham is so fully realized in this game. Like, the setting is kind of small, I would say, but by the end of it, you know every hallway, you know all the buildings, you know the central locations and stuff. And it feels so fully realized, partly because of like that excellent enemy placement. It just feels so natural. You're right. It doesn't feel like they're just kind of dropped in randomly.
Yeah.
So generally speaking, I think we've talked about games that, we kind of consider to be sort of perfect and like wholly realized in their vision. And Arkham Asylum, for me, and your mileage may vary here, I think is not a completely perfect game, but I think is so wholly realized in its vision that, like, I can look past its flaws.
Yeah. Agreed.
But I do want to talk about their flaws because it is kind of funny. And a big one is the fucking boss fights in this game are ass. Every single one of them is so fucking trash.
Yeah, so there's a creative vision, all right? Like, they sit down in this room, and the brain trust gets this idea of like how they can make Batman, and how they can make the enemies and the combat flawless, and the story just flows so well. And then that's like, they were like, okay, by the way, the game comes out tomorrow and we haven't done any of the boss battles yet. What do we do?
Shit.
And I don't know whether they're just bad, or if they're just bad in comparison to the rest of the game, because they're all gratuitously easy, even on the hardest difficulty. Yep. None of them are a great representation of the characters that you're fighting, outside of maybe the Harley Quinn battle, but it's because it would be a battle, and they show that they do a really good job of showing that at the end of it.
That's exactly what she would do, is just throw a whole bunch of fodder at you and make things slightly more difficult.
Yeah, her whole boss was just setting up for you to see Mr. Freeze's holding cell, and you're like, this is fucking awesome. But you're right. I mean, all of them are just, they're not great. Like, let's just lay that out there.
The only thing I can assume is that all of these people who came together, who are, Rocksteady is incredible, like, developers. They're super good. And they must just never have played a video game before. Because some dude in the meeting was like, what if there's a big guy who charges at you and you got to trick him into running into a wall? And everybody's like, I've never played a video game before, but I guarantee you nobody's ever done that before. That sounds fucking genius.
Yeah. And then what if every enemy after that's almost as large does the exact same thing every time?
No joke. Half of the boss battles in this game are just against Titan guys and Bane, which is the same fucking fight.
It's just the first Titan guy, right? Like it's just the
Yeah.
first one that you fight or something
They
like that.
they start as they mean to continue, for sure. It's that one. It is I don't even fucking know what you'd call the Killer Croc segment. Is that a boss fight? What is that? It's not stealth. It is
Annoying.
like it's
It's like a maze. It's literally like Outlast meets Batman because he's just chasing you around and you just have to avoid him. But and I get it's a challenge because like hand to hand,
it's tactical walking.
yeah, it is until he finds you anyway. Like, hey,
Right.
don't move very quickly or else he'll find you. But he's gonna find you anyway. So I don't know. I don't get it. It didn't make a lot of sense. They could have got the brain trust together to develop some different ways to handle it. I'm okay with what they were trying to get you to do, like because I get Batman wasn't down there because of a beef he had with Killer Croc. Like it was all about avoiding him, but like I don't
The
know.
narrative down there is fine, and like it's towards the end of the game, and things are tense, where like you're trying to construct like a cure at this point. Like there are 1,000 good reasons to be down there. Mechanically, kind of dumb.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. And like the foresight that they had to where it's like everyone knows Batman as like a tactical mastermind. Like
Yes.
he's fantastic. But like how in the world did he know to put that gel on the ground exactly there?
It bothers me every time.
The sonar thing, I get. That was like big brain move. Like he's like, I'll put the sonar thing up here so I can find my way back. Great. That made a lot of sense. I wouldn't have thought of that. I would have been fucked. I would have died down there. But like that was cool. But the the bat gel on like this floor that how would he I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. It's just so weird.
You know what I think the thing is, and I'm just kind of thinking this through now, is like this game, when it is good, it fucking sings. It is so incredible. And when it's bad, it's so bad as to be kind of charming.
But again,
Do you know what I mean?
Is it because it's that bad, or is it because the other parts are just so well done that it makes
Well, I
us
think that's
stand
true.
out?
Yeah. Like it's never frustrating at all.
No.
Like I don't think some of the boss fights are annoying. All of the boss fights are annoying.
I will say
like-
that the boss fights that are not annoying that I actually think are really well done are the Scarecrow bits because those are fantastic. Like
Thank you.
I love those.
Because I definitely don't want to forget about those. Those are incredible.
Yeah.
And like something that I can't believe wasn't carried forward into the other Arkham games.
Yeah.
Like they never try this again. And it's some of the best bits in this game. You know, when I was thinking about my all-in moment, I literally just wrote the word like, come on.
Yeah, for sure.
Come on. Batman's going down an elevator and starts coughing. That's my all-in moment.
Yeah. I love that. The little tiny tells and the Jim Gordon's dead and like that whole just flawless execution of that. And like it just builds on itself like so neatly. And like fourth wall breaking level shit too, to where it's like further building up that idea that you are Batman while you're playing this game. Like the game over screen. And like, I remember the first time I played this game, I literally was like, what just happened? Why can't like the game just froze? And then it came back in and I was
the whole
like,
thing reset.
oh, what's happening? And then I started to piece it together. I was like, this is fucking cool. But like, it happens 3 times where Scarecrow gets a hold of you. And each of them have like this beautiful segment like leading up to them that just get more and more intense as he's like pumping you full of the Scarecrow toxin. And I want to focus on the Scarecrow portions because we just got them shitting on some of the other ones. I do want to talk about the other ones. But like, I love this because if you are a avid Batman reader, I should say, because this isn't really something they hit on like a ton. They always talk about how smart Batman is and how he's a great fighter. But one of the things that comics I feel does the best is focuses on Batman's willpower and his ability to survive.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. I think it was in the Court of Owls. Maybe it was. Maybe, I don't remember what specific comic it was, but I remember there was a comic where he was in a sewer or some like down some drain or something. He just got the absolute shit kicked out of him. His like legs were broken and he was like, he could barely lift himself up by one arm. Like he couldn't use his other arm at all. He was bleeding, thirsty, like, and he climbed this like 400-foot wall underneath inside the sewer to climb out. And like the whole time there's like 20 pages of dialogue of what's going through his head and how he's keeping himself alive. And this game and this moments do a really good job of mirroring that type of survival, but they have to change the way that the game is like the game tells that story. Like,
yeah, they have to represent it differently. And I think the presentation carries a lot of the actual mechanics of those moments.
Yeah.
Cause like, you know, a lot of the Scarecrow thing is really just a platforming challenge. But it's done so well and presented so interestingly that it can get away with that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And it does a really good job of like not making you think that it's a platforming challenge. It really feels like it's you versus Scarecrow in those moments. Like, yeah. It's not like I'm just running around the circle of a tower, like up at the top of Mario 64 floating island level. Like it arguably is very much that, but it doesn't feel that way because of how connected you are to this story and this narrative that's being told. And then I
think it's all.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's one of the few moments in this game where you feel the power bound like dynamic shift very radically. You know, like we were talking about in a lot of the stealth sections and a lot of the combat sections, you're playing as Batman and it feels incredible because it is so empowering. You're in control of both of those scenarios. The Scarecrow sections kind of rip that away from you. You know, where not only does the character not know what's going on, but through those fourth wall breaks, you don't know what's going on. For sure. You've lost control of the experience. Absolutely. So I think that's what makes those segments so memorable for a lot of people is because the rug is really pulled out from under you. Yeah,
I agree. And I love the last part whenever you beat Scarecrow for the last time before he gets mauled by Killer Croc. When you finish that, whenever he's like on the other side of the bars and you're just like holding him by the neck and you don't see him grab him or anything. He's just holding him by the neck. And he's just like, that was my all in moment when he's like, I just gave you enough to like take down 10 men. And then he gets away like that right there. It like, that was written by a fan. That was written by someone who's read comic books. Like that whole like little arc, they know how like strong Batman's will to survive is. And I love that came out in this game because that was frankly one of my worries as I was playing through it because I didn't feel that throughout the entire thing, and that hit, and I was like, "That's what I was looking for. This is a masterpiece." And then there are other boss battles that make me not feel like it was a masterpiece.
Oh no, you didn't love that Poison Ivy boss battle?
I think that's one of the few times you and I actually talked about the game while we were playing through it. Was the Poison?
I had to talk to somebody because I thought I was going to pull my hair out. It goes on so long, like way too long.
Yeah, and there's no variation in the gameplay loop either. Like that's what makes it so bad. Is it's already dumb. Like it's really poor game design, but don't make me do it a million times just to get through it because it wasn't hard. It was just dumb.
That's for all of the like expertise and all of the understanding that I think these developers showed for a lot of the characters throughout 85% of this game. When it comes down to the boss battles, it feels like outside of the Harley Quinn fight, because again, And again, that might just be like happenstance that worked out that way.
It was, I think.
Because that is what Harley Quinn would do. That made total sense. But it feels like these boss fights don't represent these characters well in any way. You know, Bane is supposed to be so scary to Batman because he is like probably the only villain who can match him both physically and mentally.
Yes.
And he's reduced to just like, you know, running into fucking walls.
Yeah.
Over and over again. You know, you don't get a sense of who these people are in any of the boss fights, I don't think. And that comes down right to even the Joker fight is insane.
Yeah, that was like, I think is probably like the Poison Ivy fight's probably my least favorite, but I think the final boss battle is very close because this game goes out of its way to show you the meticulous plan that Joker's put together, like just how chaotic but meticulous he really is as a villain, and uses Batman, his knowledge of how Batman thinks, against him the entire time. And his boss battle is literally reduced to him wanting time on the camera. Like, that's literally what kills him. Like,
he gets distracted by a helicopter 3 times.
It's so bad. Like, it just now, like, the design wasn't great for Venom Joker. The battle sucked. However, Batman putting explosive gel on his fist and punching Joker in the face was fucking awesome. Like,
that ruled.
That was really cool.
That makes sense. That's something that Batman would do. That's sacrificing his body for the play. He's a kind of heads up player like that.
He is what I like to call an absolute unit, and he really displayed it in that moment.
He really did. I thought that was like, not only did that make sense for the character, but also incorporated like, you know, a gameplay mechanic into the ending cutscene in a way that felt like, yeah, this is a tool that he would use.
Yeah, like incorporating his gadgetry that feels familiar into like a big bad ass ending.
Yeah.
Like when I replayed it again, I very much got like the ending of Wind Waker vibes, when like it's the most artful and cartoony Zelda out there, yet it's the only one where you embed your sword into Ganondorf's face.
It's true. And I think really at Batman's core, he's the kind of person who would break his own arm to punch someone.
I mean, that's probably happened a lot. So
if you could distill him down to like one act, it's probably that.
And it really does hurt me because like it goes on to like the other games too, because I can't think of a really great boss battle in any of the Batman games. Like, they're all pretty
middling. A lot of people point to the Mr. Freeze fight in Arkham City, and it's fine.
Yeah, I didn't really care for it that much. I mean, it feels more natural for the character. Like, it feels better than like having him be up on some giant mech or something like that I could totally see them doing. But
right.
I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I know people like Arkham Knight. It's fine. It's a fun game. But having Batman's final battle with Deathstroke be in a fucking tank was the dumbest, poorest game design decision ever. The only villain that has ever beat Batman in hand-to-hand combat consecutively multiple times should have been a hand-to-hand combat battle.
Yeah.
And that is so frustrating.
It's a really good point. You know what? It feels like they just don't trust their combat system enough to carry a boss fight. You know what I mean?
Which is ludicrous, because it's the best
is.
combat system in games as a whole. Like, I shouldn't say the best. It's one of the best.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a million other games that have like, you know, copped this combat system. this is the start of basically everything. And I don't think they trusted enough to make a boss fight out of it. Deathstroke would be a natural fit for that.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
given like the amount, like we've talked about in this game, there's 8,000 different like enemy varieties that you have to deal with, right? Deathstroke like uses bladed weapons, can use shock weapons and things. Having all of that rolled into one character to make a one-on-one fight, I think would be really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And it's been a long time since I've played Arkham Knight because I didn't think the reveal was that strong. I saw it from a mile away, and I just didn't feel the game was heavy enough in what made those games great. But
if you heard us mention any comic book, during this and went, "Yep, read that," then the twist of Arkham Knight. You'll know it immediately.
Fact. But I say all that to say that Arkham Asylum, it builds such a great foundation for what the other games continue, but they just don't ever deliver on that boss battle segment. I think City does a great job of utilizing the size of its environment to its advantage, although I do prefer Asylum more. I prefer that closed-in environment. It still does the story and the idea of Gotham City justice, and the homages to characters that aren't in there, all that, they're still there, still feels great. But a Batman game in this tight, closed environment with an intense focus on your detective abilities in a small enclosed space, and then having these environments evolve as the game goes on and Poison Ivy gets out, and making you traverse the same areas in different ways with different techniques and new types of abilities that you've unlocked as times go on, makes the game way more fun, as opposed to like a City where everything is just open and free and you're at your own disposal to figure those things out, because it makes the player feel smarter whenever they figure out how to get in that room that way, and how do I get over there while avoiding this poison gas, or oh my god, there's a vent here I could climb up and go down, like that's cool, as opposed to just I'll jump to that building instead of that building. Like you feel way better in those tight environments.
I'm so glad you said that, and I do want to talk about like Arkham Asylum's legacy, because you're right, like this game is a proof of concept, not only for like the Arkham series, but also I think for an entire almost generation of action adventure games.
Yes.
But one of the biggest problems that I had with both Arkham City and Arkham Knight is that traversal was generally boring. It's a lot of gliding around, and like I don't know, it felt like a lot of wasted space in a way that everything in Arkham Asylum is so purposeful. You feel like you get to know the environment so much better because you're backtracking across like what is kind of an enclosed area. And it gives it a sense of character that I think Arkham City and Arkham Knight are really lacking.
Yeah. And and that's what really surprised me, because thinking back to like reading the reviews and what people loved about this game was how much they felt their knowledge of Batman was complimented. How much they felt like how much I love Batman will directly influence how I feel about this game, because the environments are so well crafted to be for those types of fans. And not just the environment, but the story and the music. I mean, everything was for and by the fans. So when they kind of abandoned that, moving forward to these more broad open designs with cityscapes and things like that, I get it, it's hard to do, but let's face it, there weren't enough abandoned buildings in Arkham City to make you feel like you're in Gotham. There weren't enough weird toy factories to make you feel like you're in Gotham. Like they're just like, and I say that partially being funny, but I mean it too. Like revisit those cartoons and those comics. Like everything happens in an abandoned warehouse. Everything happens in some acid factory that I don't know why does Gotham have so many acid factories. Like it just didn't feel the same. And wrapping that background to Arkham Asylum, everything felt fun. I really liked like running out of a building and just like gliding like 100 yards across like the field and like landing on an enemy and taking them down. Like it never got old, like running from one
Yeah.
building to another, because there was always something cool to see, or a Riddler puzzle that would pop up, or Joker teeth to smash, and like everything just felt so in sync. So
I agree. Nothing felt like a slog to get to in
Yeah.
Arkham Asylum, you know? And it felt like you were kind of rewarded for going off the beaten path a little bit. And just, I don't know, exploration felt more meaningful because there was a clear line to where you're supposed to go and a couple of different things that you could explore. It I don't know, it felt more purposeful than in Arkham City where you can just fuck around for a half hour, you know? I'm curious to hear what you think about the pivot in art direction that happened between Arkham City and Arkham Knight. I'm not going to talk about Arkham Origin because I only played it once, and frankly, I haven't thought about that game since I brought it up 2 seconds ago. But you know, the sort of comic booky, exaggerated art style that we were praising kind of goes by the wayside by the time we hit Arkham Knight for something a little bit more realistic. I don't know. How did you find that?
It wasn't as jolting. I think it was because I had already played. Are you talking about specifically City to, like, from that transition, or Asylum to City and the others?
I was going to say from City to Knight.
Okay.
There's a decided, like, artistic difference, I would say.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Like, whenever I played that game, I feel the same way about Knight as as you do about Origins. I didn't like Knight. I'm just gonna say it. Like, it was a fun game to complete. It was interesting, but like you said, it was like these games cater to fans. They catered to the people who love the animated series, and the inspiration from those designs were so clearly evident.
Yeah.
But moving into Knight, it was like, why make this story someone, like, as soon as I saw the Arkham Knight and they were questioning who it was, I knew exactly who it was. Like, it goes beyond just the way that the games looked. It didn't feel the same. Like, I didn't even like how Scarecrow was the villain. I don't feel he has the mind for that. Like, I didn't think it was well put together. So I think all in all, the game was just bad. So
to me, it felt like where Arkham Asylum and Arkham City were much more inspired by Batman comics, Arkham Knight was inspired by Batman movies.
That's a good point. I like that.
I won't go so far as to say it was out and out bad, because there are things that I really enjoyed. You know, finding a way to make the Joker an interesting character, even though he's dead, I think was actually like a good way to inform Joker as a character and Batman's own mindset. You know, Joker starts to embody his own self-doubts and the things that he really worries about. So I thought that was good. And like the overall mystery, there were a couple of twists in that plot that I thought were okay. The art direction made it feel so much more generic as an open world game than either Arkham Asylum or Arkham City, to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even think that's like a hot take by any stretch of the imagination, because like, there's no arguing. Like I was saying, the Arkham Knight was not a mechanically sound game. Like, it was very good. It was a fun story to play through. I still enjoyed it for what it was, but I don't think it was made for the same audience that the other two games were made for. In terms of that, like, fan service. And maybe, you know, and I get eventually there is that need to pivot, you know, to move off of one thing in favor for the next. But when the stake and reputation of your knowledge and ability to present that type of story are on the line, you know, I think they should have had a little bit more care. and followed that same formula because I don't see them doing anything else with Batman. So there's that.
Right.
So, and I think the time, by the time night got there, I think all of us were ready to take off the metaphorical cowl. Like at the end of that game, I was very much satisfied and full with that storyline and ready to move on. So
I think that's absolutely fair. But it points to something that you brought up before, where the first two games felt like they were made for an audience of fans. Everybody should know who the Arkham Knight is. If you're making it for the same people, like, come the fuck on, man. This is a well-known character,
dude. Yeah, it was. I mean, legitimately, it was a slap in the face. Like that. You don't think, and I thought it was so obvious that there was no way that's who it was. Like I felt like that's what they were leading up to. Like I thought it was going to be someone I just wasn't expecting, and it'd be like, oh my God, like what a reveal. Like I played myself because of how bad but like, should I have thought that though? Because look what we got before. Like look at the twists and turns that we got in City and then we got in Asylum. And with this, it just didn't hit home. I don't know. And like I said, like even beyond that, I just don't feel with what Scarecrow is doing. I feel like his love of fear and the control that he has, like the story that they told was not one that like was that grandiose of a scale that like Scarecrow would cook up and be like that intimately engaged with. I don't feel like that's Scarecrow. So
what sucks is that like I completely agree with you, and they already had a model for Scarecrow in the first two games. Like the Scarecrow in Asylum is genuinely creepy. Yes. Maybe not a mastermind, but like I don't know, he has this weird high-pitched voice and he's really cackly. And by the time we get to like Arkham Knight, he's, a very sort of generic gravelly voice, like I don't know that bitch. I've never seen that guy before in my life.
Yeah, and I love that design. The Arkham Asylum Scarecrow is one of my favorite characters in that game because of the clear tributes from the older style. It has obviously it is nothing like the animated series Scarecrow at all, but like it sort of is. Like there's that gangliness to him, like you said, that weird laugh and that voice, and it's doctored up for sure, but at the same time, the creative direction that they took with it was pretty good. Like, because the idea of he inspiring fear and him just being like this gangly Scarecrow would have been weird. I probably would have enjoyed it, just for the artistic creativity, but I like what they did with it in the new characters going forward. I just didn't feel like they captured that same direction. But Arkham Asylum did such a good job in just about every way of like servicing the fans in a true comic book fashion, in a true animated series fashion, in a true way that made you feel connected to Batman that I've never felt before. Like this type of medium and presentation, you don't get that with Batman often. A lot have tried, a lot have failed, and you had a good run with these two games, and I wish they would get that close to it. And it's inspired a lot of other things, but I don't feel like any of them have gotten to the level that Arkham Asylum really put together for people.
I think that's fair. But I do want to talk about a little bit about what this game has inspired. Because I think there's two ways of looking at it. One is mechanically, where we have direct inspirations like, the Shadow of Mordor, like those games.
Sure, yeah.
Which has absolutely pulled a lot from this. And
it's like a reskin, honestly, almost.
It basically is. But it benefits really well. And people realize, like, I think they were smart in recognizing, like, that power fantasy is equivalent, kind of. People who want to be Batman also want to be Aragorn.
True.
But I think the other thing that it's done, and I don't think it gets enough credit for, is inspiring, superhero games for those developers to really think about the mechanics of the characters that they're creating.
Yes.
I don't think you get Marvel's Spider-Man without the Arkham series.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's a success. It's a huge success, and absolutely cops from the combat system for sure. But they realized how much of Spider-Man is about that traversal and web slinging, and put a lot of effort into making that feel very natural and give that same sense of mastery that Batman has with stealth and combat. I don't think it gets enough credit for that.
I agree, and I think it goes beyond superhero games. Like, just with, like, I don't think we get Sifu without this. Honestly, I don't even think we get Sekiro without this. Like, the ability to have to make those quick time decisions during combat it's relatively fresh for that time, the time it came out. And I'm not saying that this was a direct inspiration for like something like Sekiro that's so advanced in its combat style, but I think that there are probably 5 or 6 steps between here and there, and I think that Arkham Asylum at least probably has a percentage of inspiration in those things.
I would not disagree. I think that Sekiro has a lot of Arkham Asylum's DNA in it.
For sure.
That kind of reactive, quick combat. When I say that Arkham Asylum was a proof of concept, that goes beyond like the Arkham series, I think. That is for how basically the next generation of action adventure games is going to play.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And like combat centric things, like I think that there's a lot of like the list goes on and on. Like I could give like 10 more, just different games that I feel could have been inspired by that combat. But like the other end of the spectrum of that, like it is not often you get, before this, detective games like Condemned, or even going back to like some more other ones, were arguably just read this file and go find this object and be like, oh my God, the case was put together for me. But like scanning a trail of like tobacco and then using these like state-of-the-art tools that arguably never would exist in the real world, at least not for another 100, 200 years, even from now,
right,
felt great. And like walking the footsteps of someone who's going to solve the puzzle felt real. It felt good. It felt like I was in those shoes, as opposed to just like picking up an item and letting the characters tell me the story. This game does that, but it makes you feel like you walked the steps and did the work to get there. So it feels more rewarding for the player. And I think that's the disconnect that games have, is people are smarter than what you give them credit for in video games. People are pretty dumb, but they're smarter than what you give them credit for. And, myself not excluded.
Right.
If you let people walk that path, they're going to come to those conclusions, or at least whenever it's explained to them. It's like watching a good TV show. Like you sprinkle the dust along the way for people to pick up on the breadcrumbs. And by the time they pick up, or it's presented to you, like people feel like, oh my God, I should have known that. A great TV show or a great movie does that. And a great video game is no different. So with this detective aspect, there's a lot of games out there that have that, but it's either, hey, go find this thing and we'll tell you the story, or read this document and pick out the clue words with this lighter or some shit like that. And I think this game does detective right. So
I think it does too. It's like, I hate that I can't call this game a role-playing game, because that's, I don't know, at the core of what those words mean, that's what this is.
Yeah.
You know what? Like,
it's true.
You're in the boots, man.
No, I often struggle with that too, because I'm like, well, is Metroid a role-playing game? Is Zelda a role-playing game? In the most
Yeah.
truest sense of the word, it kind of is, but that's a
But not what that genre means.
Exactly.
Which this is a whole nother discussion, but I think that's one of the stupidest fucking. It's a bad name for a genre. It's a good genre mostly.
no,
A
I
lot of-
I agree, but I think like talking about the influences this game has, like I'm gonna say this and it might be divisive, but I think that like Arkham Asylum takes chances in those areas because I could see someone visiting some of those segments and thinking, this is a little boring, or this is a little like, I don't know if I like this. But like when it's well executed, it just feels like part of the process. And I feel like all the way down the line to like games like Disco Elysium, like we're probably inspired by this type of how do we implement this detective like flow in a very natural way to make the game feel better just without all the Cthulhu. So
So we probably should have covered this at the beginning, and that's my fault for being a bad showrunner. But Michael, would you say you like this game?
yeah, I think so. I
Well,
think I
guess
like
what,
this
you
game.
fucking idiot. There's other people who have a second opinion.
God damn it.
This one was a difficult one to put second opinions together for because it turns out that a lot of the critical ones are glowing.
Okay.
So what I had to do was strap on like goggles and protective gloves and go into the user reviews of Metacritic.
Oh God. Are you okay, Max?
I'm really not.
I am
think
curious
if you-
though, because this is not like this game reviewed very well, like really,
Oh, yeah.
really well.
Incredible. And we're going into the archives for this, right? Because a lot of these reviews are written in like 2011 and 2013.
Yeah, went deep.
So, and by the way, if you have more than 3 typos in a post, it shouldn't allow you to post. Like, I think.
Yeah, the user section is gratuitous. I agree. Like, they're very much. There's a lot of allowances there that they should have in line.
Yeah. So this one I've picked out because I don't know if this person makes valid points, but they do construct basic sentences, and that gives them a leg up on a lot of the other ones that I read.
All right, I guess that's the foundation of a written review, I guess.
Yeah, it is a very generous 1 out of 10 review.
I'm sorry, it's
And
a
it is
1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to read the first paragraph here, and then I'd just like some reactions to what you've heard. I'm so excited about this.
Great.
This is a game that I kept hearing things about for a few years now. I've been meaning to try it. I just recently got around to it, and frankly, I am dumbfounded looking at some of the ratings it's gotten. I wanted to like it. I really did. But it's been some time since a video game has left me so bored, and I don't think I have ever played anything more overrated. Parentheses, except maybe the Halo series or Borderlands.
If I recall correctly, that is a copy and paste of what you sent me when I asked you how you felt about Horizon Zero Dawn.
And I stand by every one of those words, Michael.
So my issue with this review, obviously, is it gives me literally nothing about.
We're going to get into it.
Okay,
We will
okay.
get into it.
Also, I agree. Borderlands is trash.
Borderlands is bad, but if you're coming after the Halo series is good in the same way that I can say it's like it is 56 degrees out and the Halo series is good. Like that's just an
Yeah.
objective fact.
It's just Halo is like comfort food. Like, could
Yeah.
it be better? Absolutely. But do I feel damn good when I play it because it's mindless fun? Hell yeah. Like
100%. The level design is bland and uninspired. The combat system is oversimplified. The enemy AI is utterly brain dead. Many of the early fights you can win even if you close your eyes and just start tapping the strike and counter buttons randomly. And I'm not exaggerating. Try it, and you'll see what I mean. We're going to take this paragraph by paragraph.
I mean, uninspired is a strong word. I mean, this game drips with inspiration. Like, you can walk into a room and like arguably point to pages in comic books where they pulled this from, or like there is nothing but inspiration in this game.
That was the thing that really like I was very surprised by, because I've seen a lot of criticism levied at these games. Like, yeah, in the passage of time, and like, I don't know, maybe they haven't aged super gracefully, but I think they've done pretty well. Nobody has ever said like, this is uninspired design.
Yeah,
like,
that's a crapshoot right there. Wrong.
That is
factually incorrect.
Every single area of this game is just dripping with visual storytelling. It's so good in like, processing corridor D or whatever shouldn't be an interesting place to be, but fucking is, because there's such a history to it. You can feel the like thousands of villains that have come in and out of this place.
Yes.
It is.
You can feel the wear and tear. You could like, you feel like in like when you're listening to like audio logs, like the echoes through the hallways and like things like that. It's just teeming with life in a way like Dark Souls is, to where you could feel how the world would have just been there just before you got there. Like, people would have been bustling with employees and all that type of stuff. It's really cool. So this guy's a fucking idiot.
That's something. Okay. This is something that I'm just thinking about. Like, there aren't a lot of cutscenes in Arkham Asylum. A lot of it is just you sort of progressing through the world. Like, there's a few like story beats, but they're quick and snappy and to the point. The rest of it is you exploring the area on your own, and that's where a lot of the storytelling gets done.
Yeah.
Just through those environments.
And I like how much, I know I'm like dipping back into earlier conversations, but I like how much of the story and the lore is told outside of the core like game narrative. Like there's, I would say it's like 50-50. Like probably about over half of this game is extra content for you to chew on. You could play through this entire story, do 10% of the Riddler puzzles, and not get to some of the extra areas, don't fight some of the extra bosses, not see some of the other things, and just, it still would feel very inspired and still would be dripping with like fascinating character lore, like from the one or two character tapes that you come across, because they're just interesting. I mean, I remember the first time I played this game and I like was going back through and finding like the character tapes, and I did the Zaz ones where he's like talking about murdering babies, and I was like, there's some taboo shit in video games, and that's one of them. Like, talking about dead children is usually pretty frowned upon, but like you're dealing with like psychopathic murderers that have no hold, so you need to push those boundaries a little bit to make the player feel uncomfortable, like I did whenever I first heard that. And it's like, just goes to show how inspired and unique and individual this game is.
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that, because here we get into, the person who posted this, I think, wants to make it clear that he's considering like all aspects of the game. So we get a little bit of slight praise for, a sense of objectivity. In all fairness, I need to point out that for a 2009 game, most of the visuals are pretty decent. Some of the character models are not that well done, but overall, it's not a bad-looking game. The voice acting for Batman and Joker are excellent, but most of the other voices aren't anything special. That's just not true. That's just objectively, like, everybody in this cast is fucking killing it. Yeah. And most of it comes through in those examination tapes that you were talking about. You know, when characters just get a little bit of time to themselves to like I don't know, just put themselves out there a little bit to sort of like put the character on display, and they're all great.
Yeah.
Like 201, they're incredible.
Yeah, and the game does a great job. I don't know if I'm ever going to get through an episode without using this word, but like creating like a wonderful juxtaposition between how this type of facility would operate versus how just deep and dark the people that are here really are, and the villains that Batman normally deals with, because it's like, this is the go-to for miles, states around, the go-to state-of-the-art penitentiary for the criminally insane, with like a really good reputation. But yet, like, in every single one of these like 15 to 20 tapes that you get, all of them are colossal failures. So like, just by that fact, it just goes to show like how deep and incriminating and awful these people are, and how good of manipulators that Joker is, and how like just sadistic Edward Nigma is, like, and they're all so well detailed that like you can't tell me that these are just uninspired, unoriginal, just dully acted things. This game felt alive. Like it's so good.
One of the things that like it's never highlighted, and I'm kind of happy about that it's sort of left as an open question, is that kind of hypocrisy of Arkham Asylum. Because you're right, it does have this reputation as like, you know, this is the premier place, this is a place of healing, yada, yada, yada. It is a glorified prison. There is not a sense of reform. So when you see shit like, oh yeah, Killer Croc, we generally keep him in a fucking sewer underneath a building. Like, oh yeah, I don't think this is a place of healing, actually.
Yeah, and I like how they subtly touch on that in like the
or like prisoners wearing fucking shock collars, or there's a shock floor. Like, not generally a thing you associate with, you know, reform.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, a little that goes to like the comic book side of things, but like that's not the vibe that I picked up from and stuff like that. But how natural did it feel though? Like the game does a great job of making even those like super weird things that like you stop and think about as being sadistic. Did you ever stop and think about like punching these or suplexing these like criminally insane
every time, Michael? Michael, every time.
I can't stop crying. But like, just, you're right. I mean, the game does a great job of putting you in those shoes, because that's everyday life for Batman. And if you tell me that this game does a poor job of bringing that to life, you're wrong, because it doesn't.
Yeah, it feels so fully realized. All right, rounding this out.
I can't believe this guy. Does he have a username on there? Give me this fucker's username.
I'm not saying shit. I know you'll harass people.
His name is Mr. Zangland.
He does end this with saying Horizon Zero Dawn sucks, which is interesting.
Well,
I'm glad I was able to get my copy of this for free. I would have been pretty upset if I had to spend money on this turd. Like I said, I wanted to really like it, and I really tried, but it's just not a very good game. IMHO. I ended up deleting that to save some hard drive space, because I know for sure that I'll never be playing this one again.
It just gets mean. Like, the last three sentences did not need to be there. Like, none of that
goes in hard right at the end. Also, this game's like 8 gig. It's nothing. What are you saving?
Yeah, like, man. I have games like that in my Steam library that are installed that I'm like, I'm never going to play this again, but I go to delete it and it's like 700 megs or like 2 gigs, and I'm like, what is it hurting? Just leave it there.
All right, you can stay, but
don't get your hopes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's so much about this game that just doesn't like need to be said. and it goes to like the environmental storytelling. The Riddler puzzles are fantastic, all the way down to like Batman's cape ripping throughout the course of the game to like make it feel battle worn, and his suit gets ripped and torn, and it really gives the sense like he's been through some shit tonight. And but also on top of that, like your little trips to the Bat Cave and like the sense of progression you get from that, teamed up with, you know, how like tattered and bruised you're getting throughout the night, and like the subtle like bloody lip that you have like halfway through the game.
Right.
It's like little things like that. Like if those weren't there, someone would have noticed them, but no one ever talks about them because they're so naturally placed in the game like
Agreed.
this. And like that is what makes good gaming. The devil is in the details, and it hurts me that there are people out there that think that way, but you know, I guess this game's a turd. I would use a lot of words to describe this game, but turd is like probably the most insulting of all of them. I'd rather you say this game is fucking trash than say it's just a turd.
It's a turd. That hits hard.
It does.
And it's funny because I think a lot of the complaints that this person levied against the gameplay would have been mitigated if they had turned up the difficulty.
True.
Which is what you recommended at the beginning, and I think is absolutely right. That is like the intended way to play it. Yep. I think.
Yeah, and I think also like by finishing the game, or at least getting like 20% into it, he might have liked it more. But like it's pretty clear this person was not a Batman fan or didn't ingest any other media other than Christopher Nolan's trilogy. Because, you know, I love those movies as much as the next guy, but like it's not like that's a very different representation of Batman than what the comics give us. So
yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's definitely fair.
But
so I don't think we can talk about this game without at least spending a couple of minutes talking about Kevin Conroy.
Yeah.
Because we had talked about covering this game just shortly before he passed away. And I started my playthrough afterwards and really tried to notice and appreciate how much he brings to the character. I'm sure you're the same way as I am growing up on the animated series. So Kevin Conroy is the voice of Batman to me. Everybody else is imitating.
Yeah, 100%. And the way he brings this character to life in this game it is hand over foot. I remember whenever this was brought out, they didn't hold to that promise, but when this game came out, they had said, like, this is probably going to be like my last soiree into Batman. And Mark Hamill said, I probably won't be revisiting the Joker after this. And again, They both lied. Thank God. But like, you could tell because the performance they bring to life here is just absolutely stellar. And you just feel so alive living in Kevin Conroy's head in this game.
Yeah.
Like, you feel so connected to such a iconic voice. And I was pretty upset when I saw that he had passed away, especially at such a young age. And I'm absolutely honored to get the chance to talk about this game and I'm glad that we had the chance to talk about it and we released this when we did, because it forces us to take the extra couple minutes and, you know, put the appreciation and the love and respect on his name that it absolutely has and deserves. And I hope everyone else feels the same way, because Batman will never be the same moving forward without the voice of Kevin Conroy.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And like, if you're listening to this and you have Arkham Asylum or any of these games, you know, somewhere, boot it up for a few minutes and just like, you know, just kind of take in his voice and the amount of work that he's putting into every single one of those lines to bring this character to life. One of the things that really struck me, and I think is such a good, subtle sort of choice that he made, especially in this game, is that in the animated series, there was such a clear distinction between Batman's voice and Bruce Wayne's voice.
Yeah.
Batman was a little bit harsher, and like, you know, Bruce Wayne had a more naturalistic way of talking. And in this game, Kevin sort of made that happen by using Bruce Wayne's voice for the internal monologue,
Yes.
which is a little bit softer and more naturalistic than the performance of Batman that he puts on when he's talking with other people. I think that.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I was gonna bring that up. I love whenever like you get on the comms or you're talking to Barbara or anything like that, how there's that shift, and just by listening to something, not seeing it, because nothing visually changes, there's such a staunch difference in between the movements between those characters. Because if you know anything about Batman, Bruce Wayne and Batman are two different people, and Batman is Persona 1 and Bruce is Persona 2. So seeing that like softer tone hit, like it creates such a hard line distinction between those two characters. And Kevin Conroy is just continues to demonstrate just a master class of his abilities. And I'm very excited that we're going to get the chance to hear him one more time in Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. That reveal at the Game Awards, like it hit me hard. And like the thank you, Kevin, that came up, like I was like, oh my gosh, like, because like as a Batman fan, it's not just paying tribute to someone that like is part of something that we like. Like the character of Batman has passed away. Like that is the Batman for so many people, and rightfully so. And we're mourning and grieving with you. And it is I'm absolutely honored to be able to attribute something like this to Kevin Conroy. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Whew. Hard to follow that up, but
no. Also, this is an insane thing to say, but also Mark Hamill is in this game. And he fucking kills it.
He's great, but Mark Hamill also is in the Star Wars Christmas special, so talk about a turd. Come on. Like that there we could use that word appropriately.
I am so happy that we don't have to talk about Star Wars on this podcast. I have a lot of thoughts.
Oh man.
But go ahead.
I was just going to comment on the Mark Hamill piece. Like I know we spent like 20 minutes there talking about how like amazing Kevin Conroy is, and we would have done that anyway, like regardless of his untimely passing. But like every character in this game kills it, but like the chemistry that Batman and Joker have and mimics perfectly the chemistry that the voices of Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill have. It is just so clear and evident the entire time you play this game that there's just such a love and appreciation for both of those characters, and that strange, weird relationship that Batman and Joker have, that they're just part of like this yin and yang and of the world. And it just is it's so cool. They bring those characters to life so well. Such a mad respect for what they do. So
I was reading up trivia before we got on the mics about this game, and one of my favorite things is that Mark Hamill didn't read the script for it.
Holy
crap.
Just
put it. They were just like, they put it in front of him like, we're doing a Batman game. We'd like you to voice the Joker. And he was like, is Kevin doing it? If Kevin's doing it, I'm doing it.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Makes me so happy.
I have to imagine they've been friends for such a long time. I'd love to sit down with Mark Hamill and talk to him about some of the like things and memories that they've had. And I hope that the industry gets together and puts something like that together here in the next
for sure.
months.
Well, Mark, if you're listening, open invitation to the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to squeeze Mark Hamill into our schedule,
I mean, I don't know. We've got other stuff going on. Any last like lingering thoughts about this game? Just to close off anything that you want to touch on that we didn't get to?
I am happy that there is no driving sequences of the Batmobile in this game. And this is not a shot at Arkham.
Hate Arkham Knight.
No, this at all. This 100% is not a shot at Arkham Knight. I think that the limited scope that it has in this game and how it was plunged into the water it was so cool. And like, and I say this because there's so many things for people out there that if you've listened to this whole show and you haven't played this game, like just one final thing to say, the whole game is such a neatly wrapped gift of little things in the Batman universe, like the Batmobile, like all the characters, like the relationship that Batman has to each and every one of these villains are so neatly represented in ways like this that the game just becomes this perfect package of everything but boss battles. So definitely go out of your way to play this. It's cheap. You could probably find it for free on somewhere, or like for $2 on like a code sell site or something. Definitely worth picking up. Can't say enough good things about this. It is awesome to get to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm really glad we covered this one. This feels much more in line with something like a personal favorite of ours, as opposed to something that is an objectively good game, even though it is. But it's fun to be able to talk to something that we both love and recognize, like, there are flaws here, but weirdly, that only makes me love it more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to recognize the good without the bad, because like I said before, sometimes it's really hard to tell if it's really bad or if it's just bad because it's just being compared to just perfection.
Some real highs. Yeah. But maybe we're wrong. Maybe this guy that we read the review of is completely correct, and you're listening to this going like, man, I tried to play that game and it was fucking terrible. In which case, I would invite you to the Discord and you could fight me.
Well, we will set up a fight room and Discord. It'll be private access. You have to pay $1 to get in, but there's going to be no one can chat other than you and Max, and you just battle it out verbally.
I will just spam fucking Y and counter everything you say.
Oh my gosh. I don't know whose point you're trying to prove there, but that's fine.
I really don't know either. Look, it's tough to transition out of that into something sincere, but we've gotten a lot more interactions and hits on the Discord and started a lot of good conversations, which I've really enjoyed having. So thank you so much for that. We're getting a fuck ton of reviews, which is really helping us.
I don't even know where those came from. Listen, between last time we recorded and now, we have over 100 5-star reviews on iTunes. Like, I'm not mad about it, but like, for real, thank you guys. Like, that's fucking incredible. Like, and the numbers like shot up too. Like, we had 500-600 listens a day. Like, it's insanity. Like, you guys are blowing us up for no reason, and I'm not mad about it. I appreciate it.
It's delightful. You guys have terrible taste, but thank you so much.
I'm trash and Max is trash and your tastes are trash, but we love you anyway. But no, you're right. It has been really cool lately with the Discord, because like it'll be silent for a day or two, and then like one day, like all day long, people are in there having conversations. I think the conversation about Arkham Knight happened in there, maybe.
Yeah.
I swiftly excused myself from that conversation because it was pretty clear to me that I stood alone on my platform.
You know what's fun is I can hear you like not like holding back when you type sometimes.
It's like you like see my name pop up at the bottom, like Average Idiot 121 is typing, it disappears and never shows up.
That's exactly it. Where I'm like, I fucking know he had something locked and loaded.
That's how it goes. It's just better to not belabor the point. And I don't want you to think we're out here like slamming what people like and dislike in the Discord, because that's not what it is at all. It's just,
no, definitely
that's
not.
Actually why I went out of my way to not say anything, because people were having a great conversation about things that they liked, and I wanted to be like, this game fucking sucked and I hated this about it, when people were just trying to have fun, and I'm not trying to be that guy. So Which just goes to show how well Max knows me, because he's like, Michael's here to shit on my fun. I could smell him hiding around the corner.
I absolutely know when it's coming.
But the link to the Discord is down below in the description. So if you want to jump in there, got a lot of randoms, jumping in and talking with us. And we've got a few people that will just jump in and do like art or game and stream, and we'll jump in and chat. It's pretty cool. So you all are welcome.
We also covered big events generally, like, the Game Awards and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the whole Game Awards, there was like a live chat going where everyone was talking about things.
Right.
All the way down to the Bill Clinton and Vader. So it's good.
Oh my God.
It's a good time.
That's a nice bookend, right? We start with Bill Clinton and we will end with Bill Clinton.
Roger summed it up perfectly by saying, he's like, there's so many good games and so many announcements and so many reveals tonight, and the only thing anyone's going to remember about this Game Awards is Bill fucking Clinton.
Bill Clinton. The 2 seconds at the end of the
So true. But
oh man,
all that to say, thank you everyone for listening. It's been a blast. I'm really excited to get this episode out because, like you said a little bit ago, like there's been like a really healthy mix of like, obviously every game we've talked about we really liked, but a healthy mix of like things that we liked and talked about because we've both played, and then games we were played because we both really loved them and wanted to revisit them. And I've loved every project that we've touched so far, and I think every episode has turned out really well. So if you think so too, leave us a review if you haven't already. Jump in the Discord, talk to us about it. And if you really like us and you really think we're doing a really good job, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/13palmtrees, and that'll help our entire company grow because we have bills. But don't feel pressured. Honestly, I would take someone leaving a review over donating financially, because that helps our exposure and continue to grow. And if you like what we do, we have a web store, 13palmtrees.myshopify.com, where generally we create custom cover art for every episode that we release of our podcast. And Daniel and I work on those together, and they're all fucking awesome. And
201, they've been incredible.
And all of those end up on some type of t-shirt on our website. We have stickers, all types of cool stuff for the show. So visit the store. Maybe you can fight Max's mom for Max head stickers. So
yeah, good luck.
God, it's like the other day I got like a $78 order, and like literally it was $35 of stickers. And I'm like, why?
Speaking of which, she wanted me to pass on a message to you, and she couldn't figure out how to add a comment to the order. But she said that she hopes you're doing well, and she wishes you a Merry Christmas, and she's been listening to our Zelda episode lately and really enjoying it. So
really? Oh, well, tell Barb I said hello, even though I've never met her, and there's a pretty low chance I probably ever will. So
she'll be delighted to hear that.
Well, until next time, everyone, I'm going to be trying to find a way to get in touch with Max's mom. So see you
what
later.
Else is new? Good night, everybody. And just as a single reminder, bullets can hurt you. And if you're being shot by them, you've made a mistake. Good night, everybody.